We actually launched our first ever batch of gin on a crowdfunding website called Possible, and we weren't quite sure how it would go. All 420 bottles were gone in less than 3 days, and then we had a waiting list. And it was a blessing and a curse. I thought that was fantastic until it dawned on me, I have no idea if anyone likes the gin. They may all hate the gin and I might get nothing but hate mail. We set up in the Yarra Valley because I've lived here for about 10 years. I'm lazy and I don't really want to drive to work, so I live about 70 metres away from the distillery. It was an interesting process trying to establish a gin distillery in the middle of a wine region. I had a background in the wine industry and just decided some years ago that I wanted to take a little bit of a sidestep into gin. We stepped into gin quite easily because we were gin drinkers. Gin tends to be most wine drinkers' white spirit of choice because you tend to look for the same things. You look for aroma, flavour, balance, weight, texture. 6 or 7 years ago, gin was very much seen as something that sort of your grandmother or your mother drank. It was quite a dated product because it really didn't innovate. It sat there as London dry gin, which is the older traditional style of gin, and it stayed that way for 40 or 50 years. We wanted to change that image a little bit. We wanted consumers to come in and say, wow, that's not what I thought gin was. We wanted to make a gin that bartenders could play with and be creative with. It's not like wine. We don't make a finished product, we make an ingredient. We're a very unique part of the world because we have access to ingredients from all around the world, as well as our own really interesting native ingredients. Our climate allows us to get organic citrus all year round. We use fresh oranges in the botanical basket. We use kilos of them every single day. And that fresher citrus character is very, very different to dried peel. Very much like recipe creation in food, certain things work with certain things don't work with certain things. We deliberately took our time with that because we didn't want to launch a gin and then have to change the recipe. As soon as we arrived at a gin where we all sat down and had a drink and said, you know what, we just think that's a really interesting, tasty, delicious gin that we want to drink. Let's just run with that, and we've never changed that recipe since the day we launched. We started to play because of those 90-something botanicals that we started with. We've done a bloody Shiraz gin, which is our version of a slow gin, where we sort of experimented with local Shiraz grapes. We had some batches of gin from our experimental phase that we weren't going to release. So we put them in some old wine barrels to sort of see what they would do. So that part of the fun of this whole process has been that we can innovate, we can take risks. They don't all work. The less said about the asparagus gin, the better. And to the point where I actually need to make another batch of that because no one believes just how terrible it was. So I think one of the things that inspires me are the local winemakers in this area. This is an area that is known for world-class Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Some years ago, the winemakers out here decided that they can't make Burgundy. This is the Yarra Valley. They need to make Yarra Valley Chardonnay and Yarra Valley Pinot. And since they stopped trying to make Burgundy and made more regionally specific wines, the wine quality and the wine style here has become world class. And I think we were similar. We didn't have to make London dry gin. We made a more innovative style from day one because we saw what those guys went through, and that inspiration has been fantastic for us. So that innovation is something gin didn't do for 50 years. And now it's not just us, gin distillers around the world are really starting to play and push the boundaries of some interesting flavour profiles.